Welcome friends, Mittens here from the Kingdom of Polaris. Today we are going to be looking at the basics of how to sew a tabard. You may notice the video clips I'm using were recorded a while ago and may include some extra details about applique. If you are interested in adding some applique images to your garb, a tutorial on that can be found on one of my previous videos. For now, let's jump right into things. So when recording, I included all of the materials you would need for a tabard with applique, but if you just want to make a super simple tabard, I recommend approximately 2 yards of fabric per color, a little more if you're tall, a bit less if you're smaller. You will also need a sewing machine, some scissors, pins, and thread. Now the reason I have 2 different colors of fabric is because I wanted to make this tabard reversible. It also means I have a different color of fabric for the edge. So the first thing you will do is cut along the folded line so you only have one layer of each fabric. Next, you are going to want to line up your fabrics so they are even with each other. Since a tabard does not have sleeves or closed sides, we will jump right into the neckline. Here, I have folded the fabric in half to give a fairly good idea of where the neck hole will sit. From there, I am going to fold the fabric in half again to find the center point. You want your neck hole to be relatively centered so the shoulders end up being the same length and it feels comfy. I'm also making a little snip so I know where the center is. Okay, so this next part may look a little chaotic and random, and that's because it kind of is. There are definitely better ways to cut out a neck hole. Right now, I'm just making small cuts and slowly working a larger and larger hole till my head fits comfortably through it. It's much easier to take off a little bit at a time rather than making the hole too big right away. An additional note, the front of your tabard will have a lower neckline than the back. If you take a look at your own clothes, you will see that the back of the neckline typically rests just under the neck and the front scoops lower. The neckline I am cutting for this tabard has a fairly gentle scoop with a small cut further down the center. This, I believe, is typically referred to as a keyhole neckline, but you can definitely experiment with more styles. And here I'm cutting away just a small amount from the back so that the neckline rests under the neck and not across it. Make sure that when you're cutting the back part, you want it to scoop just a little bit. Alright, I've tested it out a little off camera to make sure my head comfortably fits through it. I've also cleaned up the edges a little bit, they were looking kind of choppy. Next we're going to pin around the neck and sew the 2 pieces of fabric together. Pins in place. Time to sew. As you sew, make sure you keep the edge of the neck hole lined up with the side of your sewing foot. This will help to maintain an even and clean edge. Once you've sewn completely around your neck hole, you need to snip the edge to ease your fabric so that it lays smoothly. Every few inches, make a tiny cut, making sure not to cut through the seam you stitched. We're nearing the end of the neck hole process, and it's time to turn your fabric. Grab one color and pull all of that fabric through your neck hole. Once you pull all of the fabric through, you will see that your neck hole is pretty much done. Some people leave it like this, but I like to go the extra step and stitch around the neck a second time just to help keep everything in place. If you made a keyhole neckline like I did, you will need to push the little tabs up, otherwise you will have a teardrop neckline, which honestly looks pretty good. So just like the first time, I'm lining up the edge of my fabric with the edge of the sewing foot, and then I'm just going to make a quick pass all the way around the neck again. Alright, final thing to do is to add the edges. As you can see, with this tabard, I sewed some applique on it. If you would like to see that process, feel free to check out my applique tutorial. So for the edges, I'm using black fabric. I am folding it on itself multiple times to make it easier to cut into even strips. Also, while it isn't critical, a cutting mat and rotary cutter will make this next part a lot easier. The strips I am cutting are 2 inches. You can make yours wider or more narrow depending on your style. In order to combine these smaller strips into one long strip, you need to sew the ends together at a 90-degree angle, making sure to leave a little flap of fabric. This will be hidden underneath when you attach the strips to the tabard. In this next step, you need to pin your strips to the edge of your tabard, making sure the wrong side is facing up. The wrong side will have those little flaps on them where we sewed the strips of fabric together. After all of this is pinned and sewn, we will then flip the strips over and sew them down again on the other side of your tabard. This may sound a little confusing, but it will make more sense as you watch the video. So I forgot to record sewing the black strip on, but just like with the neck hole, align the edge of your fabric with the edge of your sewing foot and then sew straight all the way around your tabard. Final step for this tutorial. Now you can flip your tabard over and turn your border as well. Make sure to tuck the raw edge of that strip under all the way around, pin down, and sew. And with that, you have a beautiful basic tabard. Thank you so much for watching.